the most successful songs of a spiritual vein, like Somewhere in West Side Story, are ones that are not site-specific. They don't just have to take place in West Side Story. And I think they become the property of the world.
Meine Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, Ladies und Gent, Fräulein Sally Bowles!
This was Sally Bowles in the early 30s.
Oh, well, I dash all day and I work late at the cabaret.
But when a song becomes the property of the world, it can be stripped of all the meaning it carried in its original context, as the writers of cabaret found.
Cabaret is not the jolly song people think it is. It's really a song sung by a woman in great despair who's about to have an abortion. I mean, when it's sung, most of the time it's sung like a really entertainment song, but it's not. It's a song of anger and despair, really. I've always felt that she really decides to have the abortion in the middle of singing that song.
What good is sitting all alone in your room? Come, hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret.
I don't think Sally walks out there with her fists clenched like this. I think she starts off singing like a cabaret singer, and as she, this is in my head anyway, as she sings, she gets angrier and more frustrated. And
that's one of the uses of, I used to have a girlfriend known as Elsie, because it builds within that.
She's telling
the story of her girlfriend, who apparently led a life of, disillusion and being, she wasn't what you call a blushing flower. As a matter of fact, she rented by the hour. The day she died, the neighbors came to snicker. Well, that's what comes from too much pills and liquor. But when I saw her laid out like a queen.
This is where the music starts to change. Pills and liquor, go on.
But when I saw her laid out like a queen, she was the happiest corpse I'd ever seen. I think of Elsie to this very day. I remember how she turned to me and say, now she's getting a little sore. What good is sitting alone in your room? Come, hear the music play.
Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret.
I don't think the people who sing those songs are gonna make it.
Oh, I do. I think when she sings it, she thinks she's gonna make it.
But she's not, but we don't think so. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't know. You know, you can't walk through the audience and hand out questionnaires. I wonder what they're thinking at any particular time. All I know is what I'm thinking. And what I'm thinking is Sally, who's the dunce of all time and the romantic idiot of all time, really believes it's going to be all right.
Oh, I think,
and I think a lot of our women believe it's going to be all right.
I think both what they believe and what we as a listener believe are two different things.
See, I don't know. I don't know.
This is a revelation because we wrote all these together in this room, and I never I don't think with any of those songs ever believed that things were going to work out for those people, and Fred may have.
Yeah, I know.
In 1973, another character song was about to enter the canon of classic show tunes, and it too would be much misunderstood. Hal Prince's production of the new Stephen Sondheim show, A Little Night Music, was 3 days from its opening, and still there was no song for the leading lady.
There's a scene in the second act between Desiree, the second-rate actress, and her lover of a long time ago. And he says to her, I can't lose my feeling for this young bride of mine. And so he regretfully takes his leave.
And Hal said, I'd like to know what you think about this woman and what her emotions are at this point, where my character is having to face getting older and losing her man. And we ad-libbed the really vital scene, emotional scene for them.
The scene hadn't been changed, but somehow you felt you wanted to know what her reaction to him was, rather than knowing his feeling, what made him want to leave. I had started to write a song for him, and so I abandoned that and instead wrote a song for her. And that's it. It came very, very quickly and easily. I wrote almost all of it in one night. And having seen the scene, it's a great help when you see the actors perform a scene to know what the song, or to feel what the song should be.
At 10 o'clock the next morning, when we started rehearsal, and Steve put his hands and played the first chord. And my eyes absolutely brimmed. I was absolutely choked, like I am now. And I looked at Len, who is not an emotional person, or doesn't show it, and his eyes were filled up too. We knew the first few chords. Isn't it rich? Are we a pair? Me here at last on the ground, you in mid-air. Send in the clowns.
She has a small, very silvery, very musical voice, and a very little sustaining power. So I wrote it in short phrases. And that, in fact, suggested questions to me. The fact that I knew I was going to have to write in short phrases, it suggests questions. So the lyric is built on questions. So, and also, I deliberately picked notes that would cut themselves, words that would cut themselves off, like rich, isn't it rich? Which is not a word you can sustain. You can't go, isn't it? In fact, the singers who go, isn't it rich, are not only missing the point, but they're trying to sustain on a closed vowel, and it always sounds unsatisfactory. But if you hit the word, isn't it rich, it's much more effective, and that's what Glennis did.
Just when I'd stopped opening doors, finally knowing the one that I wanted was yours, making my entrance again with my usual flair, sure of my lines, no one is there.
Isn't it rich? Are we a pair? It's that the thought that goes in. It's like modern art. It's not the object itself, but the space around it that sometimes defines what you're saying. And his melodies and his lyrics are so wed together. It's almost like they have to be done the way they're set up on the page. That doesn't mean that you have to, do them personality-less or anything, but you find the essence of the song by like Mozart, by what is musically correct becomes dramatically correct. You find the character through the song.
Isn't it rich? Isn't it queer? Losing my timing this late in my career. And where are the clowns? There ought to be clowns. Well, maybe next year.
But I still get letters from people saying, what does that lyric mean? I don't understand why people don't understand it, but I've had letters all during the years from people who say they love the song, but they don't know what it means. And in fact, I even remember Frank Sinatra, who after all was responsible for making it a hit. He was asked in an article what the lyric meant. He said, I don't know, I don't care what it meant. Look, you meet a girl, you take up with her, you leave the girl, send in the clowns. He had no specific idea of what it meant. We just knew that generally what it meant.
Though successful as a stage show, the movie of A Little Night Music bombed. It seemed audiences were losing faith with musicals. The rock counterculture was now dominating the music scene, and a new generation of writers were abandoning the old principles of musical theatre.
I got my brains, I got my ears, I got my eyes, I got my nose, I got my mouth, I got my teeth, I got my tongue. Jesus Christ, superstar, who do you know what they say?
With Joseph and Superstar, we thought, well, stuff the rules, stuff what Richard Rodgers did, brilliant though it was. Let's write what we like. And we were both rock fans, and we said, let's write what we would buy if somebody else did it. We couldn't get a theatre deal for it. Nobody was interested. So we were forced to go onto record, rather reluctantly. We thought, well, it's not really the way to launch a show. But it was brilliant, because we had to make it shorter. We had to do it in 80 minutes or something, because we had 2 vinyl albums. And this made everything more concise, and all shows are too long. And we ditched the book, because you cannot have people talking on a record. People wouldn't play it more than once. It would be, excruciatingly boring. So we made the whole thing operatic. And we thought, well, we can always stick a book in later if anybody ever wants to stage it. But of course, the operatic format of it was one of the things that contributed to its success.
Have to know, I'd have to know, my Lord. Have to see, I'd have to see, my Lord. Have to see, I'd have to see, my Lord. If I die, what will be my reward? If I die, what will be my reward? Have to know, I'd have to know, my Lord. Have to know, I'd have to know, my Lord.
If we'd written Superstar for theatre, if some foresighted or far-sighted producer had said in 1968, yes, this could be a hit, I'll give you this theatre, we would have got the old band in, and it would have been pretty ropey. Even with the same tunes and the same lyrics, it would have been rather old-fashioned, and it probably would have run 4 weeks in Plymouth, and that would have been it. But because we were doing it on record, we thought, well, let's get a rock band in. We want to make a great record, so we might get a hit single out of it.
I don't know how to love him, what to do, how to move him. I've been changed, yes, really changed. In these past few days, when I've seen myself, I seem like someone else.
That tune was around well before Superstar was written. We'd had a go writing a different set of lyrics to it. It had been a pop song. We were trying to get it launched as a pop song. We couldn't. It was a great tune, but the lyrics I did were terrible. And it was very hard for 2 unknown writers to get a ballad to